She's shaking her head at me. Hey, what's up guys? Getting ready to adjust my chain. I notice it's kind of loose, so I figured, I'd do another video and show you guys how I'm going to adjust the chain. I just did one on how to change the oil on the 2015 Fz-07, so I'm going to be showing you guys how to adjust the chain slack now. So here it is. Alright guys, so things you're going to want to have handy. I got a socket set. It's a deep impact socket set that comes in handy. The manual will come in handy, just if you've never done this before. It has an article in there about chain slack, or in the manual. The chain slack adjustment, all the instructions are on 7-24 in the Fz-07 manual, so just so you guys know. You're going to want a torque wrench, click type, just like I used in the oil change video. The nut on the axle is a size 27 metric, so that's what you're going to want. The lock nuts are size 12 metric on the back here, so you're going to need a 12 wrench. You're also going to want some digital calipers. Regular will work too, just so you can measure the distance between the swing arm and the chain, so you know how much to adjust the chain, and a flashlight if you're working in the dark like I am. So yeah, we'll get started. Alright guys, so starting with the digital caliper, turn it on. I'm going to set it to inches. As you can see right there, it's set to inches. Make sure you're zeroed out. Right there. We'll hold the 0 button. And now we're zeroed out. So now what we want to do is check the chain slack. And I'll show you how to do that right now. Alright guys, so starting with the digital calipers, we're going to measure the chain slack. Your spec chain slack, I'll just tell you right off the bat, is between 2.02, pretty much between 2 inches and 2.2 inches is what you want to have the chain slack to be. So how we measure the chain slack is right here, the chain guide. You want to go right from the chain guide under the swing arm to the chain when you pull down. So you pull down on the chain just like that, and you're going to measure the distance between the swing arm, right where the chain guide is, and the chain itself. So if that distance is more than 2.2 inches, you're going to want to adjust the chain to get it in that spec area, so between 2 and 2.2 inches. But you don't want to be tighter than 2 inches, and you don't want to be looser than 2.2, so that's why you adjust your chain. So we'll do that right now using this side, because it's going to be the ends. Right there. Pulling down on the chain. Right there. Alright, so we're at 2.8 on my bike, which is too loose, because 2.2 is, like I said, that's the loosest you really want to be. But I mean, it'll happen since the bike's new and the chain's new, it's going to stretch, so that's why we're adjusting the chain. Alright guys, so now what we did is we loosened this nut with your size 27 and your torque wrench. Loosen that axle bolt. Get it, you don't have to take it off, just get it loose to where you can turn it with your hands, loose enough to adjust the chain. So next thing you want to do is you want to grab the size 12, and you're going to loosen these bolts out right here on both sides. As you can see, the last nut. We're going to loosen those out on both sides, and then I'll turn the camera back on. Alright guys, so now we got that nut loose with a size 12. We're going to turn the inside nut, which is connected to the inside of your swing arm right here, which is going to pull your chain back and forth. So if you tighten this, you just got to think about it. If you tighten this, it's going to pull the whole axle back, which if you're tightening the chain, you want to do. So tightening this inside bolt is going to pull the axle back. Tightening this bolt will tighten the chain, and loosening this bolt will loosen the chain, if that makes sense. So we're going to do that right now. I'm going to tighten the chain I'm going to tighten this bowl right here on both sides until I get the spec, what I said, 2 inches, between 2 inches and 2.2 inches on the chain slack in between the swing arm, just like we measured in the beginning. And once we have that, tighten it up, and then I'll do all that and tighten everything back up, and it'll be ready to ride again. Alright guys, so we just want to do a little bit at a time and then check the chain right here. So just a little bit at a time. So I'm thinking my 3 fingers, just so I have something to judge off of. I'm thinking my 3 fingers is about what I need to be at. So just measuring my 3 fingers, it's 2.17, which is right in spec with all my 3 fingers together. So if I can get that chain to be touching my 3 fingers, we'll be pretty close to where we need to be. So I'll just use that as a guide. So if you guys have anything, maybe measure your fingers just like I did, or maybe if you have like a block of wood or something, that's about, in spec where you need to be. Put it in between here, and as soon as you're touching, that's when you're pretty close, and then you can measure again. So I'm going to have my fingers right there in between measuring this, and then once I get to where I'm touching my fingers, I'll measure it again. Alright guys, so now that I did that, I turned it about 4 half rotations on each side. So what I mean by that is this nut right here was tightened. I did a half turn like that 4 times on each side. So that's bringing me pretty much to where I want to be. So I'm right at 2.050. If you guys can see that. 2.050, which is right in between 2 and 2.2. So that's pretty much where you want to be, right between 2 and 2.2. I like to be a little bit on the tighter side of spec. You don't want to be too tight, obviously, ever. But I like to be a little bit on the tighter side of spec because the chain will start to stretch again because it is still a new chain. So that'll just give me a little bit more time in between adjusting the chain slack. So now we're going to tighten it all back up. Alright guys, so now that we're in spec, what you want to do is you want to take the lock nut right here at the end and just tighten that back up. That way you don't have any slipping or backwards work. So get those tight up to there, and then we'll tighten those. Make sure they're snug against the other bolt. Alright guys, so now that everything's tight on the back end, last thing we got to do is tighten up the axle nut. But before you do that, you want to make sure that your alignment's good. And how you do that is right here. You want to count how many lines this is, because you got to get that the same on both sides, and then you know your wheel's straight. So right here we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, almost to 5 notches on the swing arm adjustment. So then what we're going to do is we're going to count the other side and make sure that we're almost to 5 on that side, because if you're the same on both sides, then your wheel's going to be straight and aligned. So you want to make sure you do that before you tighten it all up, and then you won't have any issues. Alright guys, so now we're on this side and we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, almost to 5 there notches on the swing arm. So we're about almost to 5 little lines on each side of the swing arm, which means the wheel is straight. Alright guys, now finally what we want to do is tighten the axle nut, and then it's ready to ride. So the manual calls for 47 foot-pounds torque on this axle nut, so that's what we're going to do right now. Got our torque wrench, set it to 47 foot-pounds, tightening, and we're going to tighten that axle nut up now. What I like to do too, just for like precaution, is I'll hold the bike and I'll hit that back tire just to make sure that it's all the way forward, because sometimes, it doesn't happen very often, but the tire can actually move back as you're working on it. So if you hit it just like that, you're going to ensure that the axle is pushed all the way forward before you tighten that nut down. So now we're going to tighten it down. Until you hear that click, guys. That's 47 foot-pounds. That's how tight you want it. Alright guys, so we're all done. We torqued it down to 47 foot-pounds. And what you want to do is just make sure again that your alignment's good after everything's tight and good to go. So again, we count those 1, 2, 3, 4, almost to 5. Count the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, almost to 5. So it's aligned, it's straight on both sides. Both nuts here are tight, and your axle nut is tight to 47 foot-pounds. And then the last thing, just check your chain tension again. And just for the sake of time, I already measured it. I'm at 2.18. It was at 2.050, I think, when we were playing around with it. But you know, after pushing the tire forward, like I said, when you slap the tire, sometimes it rolls back a little bit. So 2.18, we're still right in spec. So I'm gonna leave it right there. So that's how you adjust your chain on your Fz-07, guys. Any comments, let me know. Don't forget to subscribe. And thanks for watching my channel. Have a good night. Doing a whole rotation up towards the top. Sorry. But I like to be a little bit on the tighter side of spec because the chain will start to stretch again. Side of spec because the chain will. Hey, what's up, guys? All right, guys. The article. All right, guys. So. All right, guys. All right, guys. So. All right, guys. All right, guys. All right, guys. So. All right, guys. Thumper man.